Namaskar, good morning, and good afternoon, good evening to all the sisters and brothers who are joining from not only from India, but also from abroad. So, on behalf of the Indian section and Young Indian Theosophist Group, I, Shikhar Agnihotri, welcome you all to a special session today, about which we'll be talking shortly. But before that, as always, let us all come together in heart and mind to start our meeting with a universal invocation. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he is therefore one with every other. Welcome everyone again. Sudhir Ji, you can log off and log in again. I think you have only connected with the audio, not with audio. So anyway, welcome again everyone to today's special session of what we call as a Theosophy science lecture, because there may be a perception or an opinion in many of the people's mind that spirituality and science are two opposite avenues. But if we go deeper and deeper, we come to this understanding that not only science and spirituality are complementary, but also avenues to take us to the same truth that the human mind or human soul has been searching forever. The science does it from outside, starts from the outside, going deeper and deeper, and the spirituality starts from within and manifesting it outwards. So, along these lines today, the subject, the title of the talk that we have is the fusion of science and spirituality. And to deliver this talk, followed by some interaction between the speakers and the delegates that we'll be having. The topic is fusion of science and spirituality. And to deliver this talk, we have with us very respected and revered Dr. Pradeep Kumar Mohanty ji, who has been requested to be here and share his thoughts. I extend gratitude to Subralina Mohanty ji because she is related to him as his niece. But a very short introduction to Dr. Pradeep Kumar Mohanty is that he is the former chief engineer of the Department of Water Resources in Odisha. But more than that, because that is his professional introduction, and he has excelled in his field of work. But more than that, with which I would like to introduce him, is as a seeker of spiritual truth, and based on that seeking, his study of Bhagavad Gita, his experiments by how to implement all those principles and teachings that are given in spiritual scriptures, and not only in the field of spirituality, but also in the field of art and science. So without any further ado, I welcome Brother Pradeep Kumar Mohanty ji to share his thoughts with us on the subject of fusion of science and spirituality. Mohanty ji, over to you.
ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। ध्यानमूलं गुरुमूर्ति पूजामूलं गुरुपदं मन्त्रमूलं गुरुवाक्यं मुख्यमूलं गुरुकृपा। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देव महेश्वर गुरु साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। Dear learned brothers and sisters, at the outset, I wish to express my respectful obeisance at the lotus feet of my illustrious father, a man of strict discipline and austerity, Mahabhagavat, Sri Gaurisyam Mohanty, whose spiritual spark had ignited the candle of knowledge within me, by which I have sustained myself. In fact, his contemporaries used to fondly address him as Radhe. Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sah Mahatma Sudurlabha. Bahunam Janma Janmante Dhyanavan Mang Prapadyante Vasudeva Sarvamiti Sah Mahatma Sudurlabha. Bhagavad Gita. I think this perfectly applies to my father. And my short connection with TOS, Theosophical Order of Society, I vividly remember the year was 1975, month of July, when my elder brother, Sri Bhavani Shankar Mohanty, he himself is a staunch Theosophist. He took me to Stuart Science College, Cuttack, for admission in ISC. That time it was Intermediate Science. And after that, he took me to a place just behind the YMCA, a narrow lane leading to a house, a thatched house, belonged to Tripathi Babu. He was the founder member of Cuttack Lodge. He blessed me. After that, I had also attended few Saturday evening meetings, and I remember Mr. B.B. Panda IPS. He was a regular speaker in those days. In fact, my wish to deliver this talk stemmed from a specific request made by my elder sister, Srimati Kasturi Mohanty, who herself is also a strong follower of Theosophy. So before I begin my talk, I must make an honest confession, because I am a great fan of Socrates, who is regarded as the father of philosophy. He said, there are many professors in philosophy, but not many good philosophers. So I belong to the first category, a professor only, not a philosopher. Whatever I am to deliver today, nothing of my own. I have collected, compiled, simply connected the dots and tried to join the broken pieces and presenting before you. Coming to our today's topic, why this topic on science and spirituality was chosen? Because I am passionate about physics, a subject which deals with the fundamental particles of this universe is made of. And every year I eagerly wait to know whom the Nobel Prize in Physics goes to and its subject matter. This year it went to three scientists. They worked on the time lag of photoelectric effect. Let us not go deep into the subject, that is electron dynamics. And then I thought, was Einstein wrong when he got the Nobel Prize in 1922 for his work on discovery of photoelectric effect? Einstein did not get Nobel Prize for this theory of relativity. That is a different story. So this is how science is evolving. Similarly, last year also, the Nobel Prize had gone to three scientists, and the subject matter was quantum entanglement. And they proved this in the laboratory. Yes, there are quantum entangled particles existing. There are binary stars. So science is advancing. In fact, I am fortunate to be born in 1960, last century, the 20th century, when tremendous development occurred in science, the STEM subjects, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And if I am not mistaken, this century is just an extrapolation of the previous one. So if we trace the progress of science over the last 5 millennia, from the times of ancient Vedic civilization, the Egyptian civilization, the Mesopotamian civilization, till modern times, we find that one of the most noteworthy achievements of humankind has been the creation of knowledge. And the combined knowledge that we possess on this planet Earth is one of our greatest assets in the present day. And I can say it is an insurance for our survival in the future. Interestingly, more than 5,000 years ago, in the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna had said, Nahi jnanena sadrusam pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yoga sansiddhi kalanatva nibindati. So he said, there is nothing so pure that you can possess as true knowledge. On the individual level, this urge to know is very intrinsic to our personality. We all do not like to be in a state of ignorance. And we all love to see the light of knowledge. The desire to know is very intrinsic to all of us. And this has powered the drive to expand the frontiers of all different branches of knowledge and add new branches. And definitely, among these all branches of knowledge so far developed on this planet Earth, science surely occupies a place of pride. Because on any matter or issue, the scientific opinion is considered indisputable and the last word. Take the case of recent coronavirus. Entire world turned to the scientist only for a solution. Even Pope took the vaccine. So why at all a spiritual man, instead of relying on God, took the vaccine? And Muslims issued fatwa to get vaccinated. So dear revered members of Theosophical Order of Society, when I am talking to you, I can safely assume that I am talking to the finest and intellectual section of society. However, when this talk was decided upon, the subject matter of the talk was chosen to be fusion of science and spirituality. So this itself indicates that even amongst the scientific community, there is an apparent need for converging science with spirituality. So why is this need perceived? How can we converge these two branches of knowledge? That is what let us discuss in today's talk. The area of science and spirituality are often seen as conflicting or mutually exclusive entities. Science, with its empirical methodologies and rigorous pursuit of objective knowledge, often clashes with the intuitive and faith-based nature of spirituality. However, when one delves deeper into the intricacies of both spheres, it becomes evident that the two not only coexist, but can offer complementary insights into human experience. Science operates under the paradigm of empiricism, which emphasizes observable and quantifiable evidence. Through systematic observations.
Are you with this early morning, Mikhail? What are you doing? Tell me. No, what are you doing early morning? Like
Sorry, Dr. Mohanty, you are muted. Kindly unmute yourself by mistake. Yeah.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
So through scientific and systematic observations, hypotheses are tested and refined to develop theories that explain natural phenomena. However, the inherent limitation of this paradigm is that it only acknowledges phenomena that can be observed and measured. Many subjective experience, which might be central to one's understanding of existence or meaning, surely fall outside its purview. Spirituality, on the other hand, delves into the realms of purpose, meaning, and a deeper connection with oneself, with others, and with the universe. It often involves a search for the divine or a higher power or a higher truth. I shall simply put it, while science seeks to understand the how of the universe, spirituality addresses the why. Why are we here? What is our purpose? These are very insightful questions that spirituality attempts to answer. And the reason why we talk of a convergence of science and spirituality is because a few hundred years ago in the Western world, there was divergence, where each of these science and spirituality They wanted to explain the whole field of knowledge from their viewpoint. And this led to tremendous hostility on both sides. And the result of this antagonism between science and spirituality is that today there is practically no overlap. You don't find any scientific paper which states that this law occurs because of the will of God. Because of the will of God. Okay. Once I happened to visit a temple here in Kanpur, and I shall not name it. Their account book somehow caught my eyes. They maintain it to keep account of their daily expenditures. In the last row, it is written GOK account. GOK account. So out of curiosity, I just asked, what is this GOK account? They said, sir, it is God only knows. So when there is a mismatch in the debit credit or cash in hand, etc., they say God only knows. GOK. We often use the same thing also. This is one way of expressing our ignorance. But the honest person will say, I don't know. Let us search. But we somehow escape in the name of God. So this divergence between science and spirituality has led to a very unpalatable situation where we find that although science has placed tremendous power in our hands, such as nuclear power, but it has not presented us with an ethical or moral system that teaches us the proper or improper use of that power. Science has enhanced our standard of living, no doubt, but we can very well see the resultant industrialization, urbanization. These all have led to global warming, depletion of non-renewable resources, deterioration of ecosystem and environmental pollution, etc. The aim of science was to remove the miseries of humankind, make us experience happiness and joy. However, many people feel that this has definitely not come about. And if we compare, we would probably find that our great grandfathers were happier people than us, even though we possess far greater material luxuries. So why is this so? Because happiness is not a result of the amount of external goods we possess, but a state of our mind only. The Western philosopher John Milton, he had put it very nicely. He said, the mind is a thing of its own and in itself can make you experience heaven in hell and hell in heaven. So science has unfortunately not been able to either touch or understand the subject of mind. You can ask a scientist, what is the chemical composition of mind? No answer. Further, the endeavor or the goal of science was not merely practical utility, but a search for the truth. We looked upon science as a means for solving mystery of life and the creation. So has science succeeded in giving us the answers that exist within us regarding the absolute truth? Let us ponder over this for a moment. So what is truth? Obviously, it is something that conforms to the reality of facts. It could also be something that is accepted to be true. Say, for example, if I say this is a watch, that is the truth. If I say this is a flower, that is untruth. However, this truth can be of two kinds, relative and absolute. For example, if a lady wears a red colored watch and I ask her, can you please describe the color of this watch? She would say, this is red in color. So what she is saying is truth, but it is truth relative to her. If a gentleman wears green colored eyeglasses, and I ask him, can you please describe the color of this watch? He would say, it is green in color. Again, he is saying the truth, but the relative truth. So relative truth is that which is dependent upon the cognitive process of the knower, whereas the absolute truth is that which is true for everybody in general. The absolute truth is that which is independent of parameters, context, and perspectives. Another way of putting this is to say the absolute truth is that which cannot be exceeded in quality. So, for example, around the year 1675, when Sir Isaac Newton presented his laws of motion, at that time, that was accepted as absolute truth. Let us not go the time period before that, like Ptolemy, Descartes, and then Galileo. Let us start from Newton. Even Newton took over from Galileo in 1642. The very same year Galileo died, Newton was born, like Einstein and Maxwell in 1879. Newton stated that space is three-dimensional. Time flows through the space without mingling with it in any way. Force is proportional to mass and distance and acts instantaneously between spaces. And he could extrapolate his theory to the outer world and established his inverse square law, which all science students know it. So from the perspective of Newtonian mechanics, this entire world was like a huge machine. And if we know the present moment and find all that forces that work, the next moment can be perfectly predicted. After that came Michael Faraday. Of course, many scientists came, but I'm talking about very specific ones. It will be a long list, like Bernoulli, Thomas Young was there. You all know this Young's double slit experiment. Lagrange was there, Laplace, Gauss was there, James Watt, Carnot, many scientists came. And these are all saints of scientific community. Just like we have spiritual saints, these are all scientific saints, and they are no less. And if they are not there, we would not be here via Zoom meeting. So Faraday passed a magnet through air and produced electric current. And by doing that, he went beyond the laws of motion presented by Newton, and he presented a higher level of understanding of the physical truths of this universe. After Faraday came Maxwell, he went further. He replaced the concept of force by force field. He stated that a photon with positive charge has a force field around it, irrespective of negative charge. And this led to a new understanding of the nature of light. Light now came to be understood as a rapidly changing force field. And we got the understanding of the electromagnetic spectrum. I will not talk about Max Planck because it will take a whole day. If we talk about Max Planck in 1900, he was a farmer. He was assisting his father in his sugarcane field. But he is the man who changed the direction of science, entire physics. We can have a separate session for that. After that came the famous Albert Einstein, who exceeded all these in his presentation of truth with his theory of relativity. He said that space and time are not independent, but related to each other, and two observers moving at different velocities will observe events differently. He also stated that Matter at rest possesses energy by his famous equation E equals mc square. At the same time, there are advances also taking place in the field of chemistry. And I think all of you know in high school chemistry about Rutherford. He bombarded atoms with alpha particles and measured the counts with a Geiger counter behind it. And he found that atom is not a solid particle as it was earlier understood to be. Very interesting. But it consists of tremendous empty space. In fact, 99.99% of the atom is empty space. Around 1920s came Niels Bohr with his PhD scholar, Professor Heisenberg. Heisenberg was his PhD scholar. They came up with this quantum theory. They stated that at the subatomic level, matter is not what we think of it to be in the classical concept. It doesn't exist at places, but shows tendencies to exist. Matter has no real existence. Like Adi Shankaracharya had told, Jagat Mithya Brahman Satya. This is a separate chapter. And Einstein was vehemently objecting to this quantum theory. That is the reason why he told God doesn't play dice. And to its retaliation, in the Nobel Prize winning talk, Niels Bohr replied to Einstein, don't tell God what to do. So the whole concept of matter changed into an energy field. Now the question came of synthesizing the quantum theory with Einstein's theories, because at the subatomic level, particles move at tremendous speed. Electron moves at about 600 miles per second, sorry. And the proton moves 40,000 miles per second. So there is a need to reconcile Einstein's theory with quantum theory. That is certainties of relativity and uncertainties of quantum mechanics. Then again you see J.J. Thomson with his team Robert Millikan and Charles Wilson in 1897 by their cathode ray experiment. They showed that electron is a particle. Then his son, George Thomson, he showed, no, it is a wave. Then another scientist, Louis de Broglie, in 1924, proved theoretically that electron is a wave. It is called a matter wave. In 1927, it was experimentally verified again to be true. I think science students can say that Davison-Zormer experiment, it was accidentally created, as if the nature was waiting to get herself revealed to the mankind. And I shall not touch upon this unified field theory now. We can have separate session if you like. What Bhagavad Gita says on this unified field theory, from string theory to theory of everything, that Kshetra Kshetranga Vibhaga, chapter 13 Bhagavad Gita, elaborately discusses, mentions about all these things. So in the physical sciences, we are still to reach a proper understanding of the absolute truth. And even if we do find such a theory, there is no guarantee that it will not be superseded by another theory after a couple of decades. This year's Nobel Prize in physics went to 3 scientists for finding the exact time scale of photoelectric effect, that is in attoseconds. Attosecond means 10 to the minus 18. But when Einstein got the Nobel Prize, he assumed it to be instantaneous. So this is the way science is progressing, evolving. So what is then is the absolute truth? Now come to the other issues like questions that come to our minds. What is the purpose of this creation? What is the nature of self? Why have we come to existence? What is the goal of a life? What is the basis of ethics and morality? Are there any absolute answers to these questions, or is it all relative? This present era is called the sociologists, they label it to different eras in our society. So, for example, we have Renaissance, we have Dark Ages before that, and there have been other periods such as the Age of Enlightenment, Age of Humanism, the Existential Age, when certain views dominated society, and this present age, this is the age of postmodernism, and the characteristic of the postmodernist is that people believe that there is no such thing as absolute truth. You are free to define truth the way you believe, and the truth is a personal matter. Fortunately, in mathematics, pure mathematics, there is a way of proving the existence of absolute truth. The technique is called reduction ad absurdum. If you wish to prove a hypothesis, you just take its reverse in the premise, and so that this leads to an opposite of it. So if the reverse of the premise leads to a contradiction, that proves that this premise is necessary. Hence, if you wish to prove that there is an absolute truth, it just take the reverse of this. Let us say there is no absolute truth. So there is no absolute truth. But is your statement absolutely true that there is no absolute truth? Now, if the person says, no, it is not absolutely true. So, well, if it is not absolutely true, then why are you insisting that there is no absolute truth? There may be absolute truth existing. And if the person says, yes, the statement is absolutely true, so that is the absolute truth, that there is no absolute truth. So this technique has been used by the mathematicians. Now let us see what the field of spirituality has to contribute to this endeavor for absolute truth, and how these branches of science and spirituality can be made to converge. We will go through a series of arguments, and so that the entire picture will be clear till the end. And I will request to all of you to please follow my chain of arguments carefully. Spirituality says that this field of science has been founded on certain assumptions. For example, let us say that there is no God. So this is an assumption. Nobody has proved it. Can anybody prove that there is no God? You can only prove it if you know everything that exists. Because if you do not know one thing that exists, it is possible that that one thing is God. So in science, we have made certain assumptions, and we have moved ahead on the basis of these assumptions. For example, Newtonian mechanics was founded on the assumptions of Euclidean geometry. I think you remember this Euclidean geometry we learned in school. There are certain postulates. For example, the first postulate was that given 2 points, there is only one line that can pass through them. Now came the mathematician Riemann. He changed his postulate. And the first postulate of Riemann, he said, given 2 points, there are 2 lines that can pass through them, space geometry. So on the basis of that, he developed his whole Riemann geometry. Then along came another mathematician called Lobachevsky, and he relooked Euclid's fifth postulate and changed it. Let us not go deeper into this subject. And in fact, Einstein, in his theory of relativity, to establish special relativity particularly, he utilized Lobachevsky geometry. So even in science, we are making assumptions. A very famous professor, Professor Towns, scientist, he says science involves leap of faith. We understand things on the basis of logic. We do not know whether our logic is correct or not, but we assume it to be so. And we are comfortable with it. It can be wrong. Our assumptions involves a leap of faith. So spirituality says that we are making different assumptions. I would like to relate two important assumptions that give us a general understanding of spiritual realm. The first assumption is about the nature of self. Who am I? Now, according to known scientific theories, we are nothing except combination of atoms and molecules. And I tell you, as per findings of Dr. Hari Monsen, you can search it in Google. He's a professor in Illinois College of Medicine in 2006. I can send you the full paper if you want. In 2006, he found that 99% of the mass of a 120-pound human body consists of 1.5 ounces of phosphorus, 18 ounces of potassium, 6 ounces of sulfur, 6 ounces of sodium, 4 ounces of magnesium, iron, copper, and iodine. And in 2006, his value was $11.2 only. And in Indian currency, it is hardly 930 rupees. Sorry. And its present value may be roughly 4,000. Once I asked my students here at IIT Kanpur, you guys have come by JEE Main and JEE Advanced and ultimately will end up in high-paying job after passing out. Suppose in one fine morning, you hear that your friend driving a Rolls Royce or a very costly Bugatti car, he has met an accident. And you immediately rush to the spot. So whom will you rescue first? Take the car to the garage or your friend to the hospital? Then the student replied, obviously, sir, it is my friend. I shall immediately take him to the hospital. But why? Your friend costs hardly 1,000 rupees or 4,000 rupees, and your car costs about 10 crore. Bugatti is 20 crore. You remember this 2003 Columbia Space Shuttle? The space shuttle was built of billions of dollars. But when the disaster occurred, nobody mourned for the spaceship, for the 7 astronauts. Everybody mourned for the astronauts only. We Indians mourn for Kalpana Chawla. So there is something which is called consciousness. What then is the basis of this consciousness? Is it merely a complex structure of atoms and molecules? One ex-Nobel Prize winner, Albert Gorgi, he said, in my search for the basis of life, in my search for the basis of consciousness, I ended up with atoms and molecules. Somewhere along the line, life slipped out of my hands. Now, in my old age, I am tracing my steps backward. So the spirituality says that there is the self that is beyond atoms and molecules. There is something which is giving us that identity which equal I. Another famous scientist, Erwin Schrödinger. I think all of have heard his name, his theory, Schrödinger equation. So Schrödinger also has something very wonderful to say about this. And I happen to read his book, What is Life? And I recommend everybody to please read his book, What is Life? Very interesting book. He said, my body, the cells of my body work in accordance with the laws of nature, and yet I know that I, within inverted comma, I control the cells of my body forcing the effects and taking responsibility for the actions. So he said that it seems these two statements can only be reconciled if there is an I separate from these atoms and molecules, which is guiding their motion in accordance with the laws of nature. Take the case of Robert Oppenheimer, who led this Manhattan Project atom bomb. He said, access to the Vedas is the greatest privilege this century may claim over all previous centuries. Professor Heisenberg, he's the developer of this principle of uncertainties in quantum mechanics. He said, quantum theory will not look ridiculous to the people who have read Vedanta. And all must be knowing, most recently, S. Somnath, Chairman ISRO, the mission director of Chandrayaan-3, in one of its convocation talk at Panini University, Ujjain, he said, principles of science originated in Vedas, but repackaged as Western discoveries. The scientists are saying all these things. So spirituality gives us a different level of understanding. Now let us discuss from the Vedic viewpoint. Vedas, Taittiriya Upanishad, it says that all that exists is different kinds of energies. Tasmat by tasmat atmana akasa sambhutah akasat vayu vayuragni agnirapo advoyah prithvi suddhya. It says that there was one primordial energy which it has the nomenclature given there as Prakriti. This unfolded at the time of creation into next form called the Panch Tanmatra. And from there it makes sense to us. The next form of the energy was space. From space came the next form, the energy for air, then fire, water, and earth. So here we have the unified field theory being presented 5,000 years ago, where Einstein's theory E equals mc square seems to be very infantile in comparison. Here the Vedas says everything is one energy unfolding. However, that is not the only energy that exists. All these are material energies. Beyond this is a spiritual energy form. And the self is a part of that spiritual energy form. In religious traditions that have been called the soul, spirit, or Atman, Srimad Bhagavad Gita says, Bhumirapo nalabayu khammana buddhi revacha ankarityam me bhinna prakriti. The 8 principal manifestations are earth, water, fire, air, and sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego, called the Mahat Tattva. From 8 separated energies of the Lord are manifest the 24 elements of this material world. It is subject matter of Sankhya philosophy. Let us not go deeper into it. They are originally offshoots from the Lord Krishna's energy only. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and separated from him. Chaitanya Charitamrita, also in Madhya Lila, it is written, also in Svatashvatra Upanishad, Parasyar Saktiri Vividhaiva Sruvate. So this soul is a higher level of energy, which we can classify as divine energy or spiritual energy. So what is the difference between these two kinds of energies? All the material energies are devoid of this property of consciousness. And the spiritual energy, that form, possesses consciousness. So wherever you detect consciousness, that indicates presence of soul, the higher spiritual energy form. Otherwise, our material instruments cannot reach that because they are restricted to the realm of material energy only. However, it can be detected by its symptoms, which is consciousness. As long as soul is present in the body, this body possesses that quality of consciousness every aspect of it. If I prick a thorn into somebody's finger, the person would say, what happened? I am experiencing pain. So there is consciousness. That consciousness is the indication of the presence of soul. Once the soul has left, the body is again dead matter in a couple of minutes. So the science of spirituality tells that understand your real nature. You are not merely a huge set of atoms and molecules. You are a divine being. Swami Vivekananda, the first monk to go to USA from India in 1893, he stated, "Thou art not bodies, thou art not matter, thou our souls immortal, spirit blessed, free and eternal." Adi Shankaracharya in Nirbana Sutakam, Manabuddhi ahankara chittani naham, no cha srutra jivhe, no cha ghrana netre, no cha vyama bhumin no tejo no vayuhu, chidananda rupaha sivoham sivoham. So matter is your servant and not you the servant of matter. This is the first assumption of spiritual science, which is common to all the spiritual traditions of the world, the nature of the self. Now there is a second assumption also that is made in many religious traditions. And again, I will explain in this from Vedic perspective. The second assumption is that the entire world has been created by an all-powerful, all-knowing creator, whom we call God, we call Bhagwan. Somebody may argue, why is that assumption made? It doesn't seem logical to me. I would rather assume there is no God and develop my own field of science accordingly. Well, if you ponder over it very deeply, it seems equally logical and commonsensical, if not more, to assume that there is an intelligent creator. That has been the viewpoint of many great scientists. And Newton himself said, this most beautiful system of sun and stars, planets and comets could only proceed from the council of dominion upon all-powerful, all-intelligent being. The great Einstein, he said, try and penetrate the secrets of nature, and you will find that behind all discerning concatenations, there remains something inconceivable, subtle, and intangible. Veneration for that force behind everything we know is my religion. So the spirituality makes this assumption, or let us say, it is based on this foundation that this creation has come about through the counsel and dominion of an all-intelligent being. Consider, for that matter, I am wearing this watch, HMT Abhinash. This was given to by my elder brother. He is no more. He was a 1971 war veteran. So if I ask how this watch was created, somebody could say this watch was created through some treated material, metal, certain metal chips, certain wires, plastics, various elements, and so on. Suppose I give you all these things. Will you be able to make it? No. Why? You know, the raw material is required, but also the machines to make it, that is also required. So you need the foundry shop to give it a proper shape, the lathe machine to finish it up, and various other factories. All right. So now to make a simple watch, you need two things, materials and the machine. Suppose we have both. Will the watch be made? Still no. There is no operator to operate those machines. So you need lathe man, the machine man, the person in the foundry shop, the mechanical engineer, etc., etc. So you need somebody operating the machines. Now supposing we have an operator, that is still not a sufficient condition to make it. As somebody would say, if that machinist doesn't have the wisdom, his knowledge level is not high enough, So this watch will still not be made. So you have the material, machines, the person operating the machines, the person must possess knowledge to make it. You have all these factors in making an ordinary little watch. Supposing that person possesses the wisdom, now will it be made now again? Will the watch be made? Not necessarily. You can walk into any watch factory and tell them, are you making watches today? No, right now we are having lockout. There is lockout going on between the laborer and the workers and the management. So we know how to make it, but we have no desire to make it. So without desire, the objects were still not made. So what if the desire still exists? Will it be made now? That brings another factor. After the desire is the effort. So many things go into making an ordinary watch. So when a little watch like this requires a creator, what about the whole creation by itself? Is it more logical and commonsensical to assume that the universe was created by an explosion, which we call Big Bang? Or is it more logical to assume that it was created with an intellect? As a matter of fact, in 1982 and in 1985, two American courts favored to teach ID theory, intelligent design theory, in place of Darwin theory. But the Supreme Court decided against the junior courts in 1987 and denied to teach the ID theory. Probably now in India, NCERT has removed this chapter on Darwin's theory from this evolution in class 10. We can discuss this later on. That has been the conclusion of many scientists. Science professor Arbor, he's a Nobel Prize winner in physics. He said, even the most primitive of cells require the combination of several hundred micromolecules. How all these came together remains a mystery to me. The existence of a creator or God seems a logical explanation for this. For your kind information, I retired as chief engineer, design of dams, barrages, bridges for the state of Odisha under my control and supervision. And for that matter, quite precision was necessary to design such complex structures. There is a bridge in United States. It is called Tacoma Narrow Bridge. You can Google it. And I tell you the exact date. On 7th November 1940, the bridge collapsed. And upon investigation, it was found that in the design, the value of G, acceleration due to gravity, was taken 1.89 in place of 9.81 by mistake. And a pretty mistake led to a ghastly disaster. So how is this value G of G is so precisely fixed? Can it happen by any human intervention? And there are many more physical constants like say Planck's constant, 6.022 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. Speed of light, 300 million meter per second. Avogadro's number, 6.022 into 10 to the power 23. So many things, so precise, so much of surgical precision. These numbers are fixed. So we can have another day for this concept of intelligent design. So my point is, a book written by Francis Collins. He was an American scientist who headed this first human genome project. So that was an international team of scientists that got together to decode this human DNA that exists in each of our cells. And they took many years to do it. And finally, when it was decoded for the first time, Francis Collins, who worked as a director of National Institute of Health, he wrote this book, The Language of God, very interesting book. In that he says that the DNA is so complex, it contains so much of information. And if that information were written down on a A4 size sheets, those seeds would keep piling up till the height of 170 meter. And if somebody began reading it at the rate of 3 letters per second, that person would continue reading it for the next 31 years. And it is said, I have not verified it also, that if the DNA is straightened out, it would go twice to the sun and come back. So point is, how such complexity exists in creation. So spirituality says that this world is not a random creation of an uncontrolled explosion, Big Bang. It has been created under the direction of that divine intellect. Now the understanding of the absolute truth is very simple. The absolute truth is the cause of all causes, that from which everything has emanated. It is stated in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It is called Chatusloki Gita, first stanza. Aham sarvasya prabhava mattaha sarvam pravartate iti mutta bhajante mam buddha bhava samannitaha. I am the cause of all creations. Again it says, Sarva jonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavanti jaha tasam brahma mahajjonihi aham bijapradha pita. Bijapradha pita. I am that seed-giving father. He is again saying, Gatir bharta prabhu saki nivasaha saranam suhrud prabhavaha pralaya sthanam nidhanam bijam abhyam. I am the creation and annihilation, the basis of everything, the resting place and the eternal seed. Bijam abhyam. My father used to say, you read only one book. That is sufficient, entire life. Srimad Bhagavat. Particularly Ekadasa Skanda. So let us not take to recourse of this Srimad Bhagavat. I will confine myself to the Srimad Bhagavad Gita here. Because you find everything in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, all answers. Even the Big Bang theory is there, black hole theory, everything. Entire physics is Bhagavad Gita. Just consider Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Janti Mamikam Kalpakhya Punastani Kalpadu Visrujamyaham. They merge with me and I create them. Big Bang and Big Crunch. We call in physics singularity. The theory of black hole also by Stephen Hawking. He has not given Nobel Prize, though. Even the light cannot escape from the black hole. Scientists know it from the X-ray radiations, from this event horizon. And it is clearly stated in Srimad Bhagavad Gita. No tadbhasayate surjo no cha sasankana pavakaha yad gattva na nivartante tad dhama paramang mama. Yad gattva na nivartante. Those who reach it never return to this material world. Again, Lord Krishna is telling, Jasmini gattva na nivartanti bhuyah. So if you read Bhagavad Gita carefully, verse by verse, all physics only. So he is the causeless first cause. Causeless first cause. Hazel was very much perplexed. He's a philosopher. He said, the present moment is the effect and the previous moment is the cause. So the previous moment was caused this moment. But the previous moment was the effect and the moment before that was cause. So we have the chain of cause and effect, which you can pull back. And if you keep pulling this chain backward, either you continue pulling till minus infinity, which doesn't make any sense. So it must have started somewhere. So wherever it started, there is singularity. At that point, you have a moment which was the cause for the next moment, but it had no cause for itself. So nearly out of logic, Hazel concluded that there must be a causeless first cause. Ishvaraha Paramakrishnah Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarva Karanam Brahma Samhita. Sarva Karanam. The Supreme Creator is the cause of all causes. That is the absolute truth. And now we get a basis that Supreme Creator possesses innumerable attributes, and one of those attributes is his divine virtues, which we call the goodness of God, the divine qualities, which all of us respect and naturally drawn towards. All of us are drawn towards truthfulness. We all naturally like justice, kindness, compassion. Nobody can ever love falsehood. So, what is the reason for this? Spirituality informs us these are the qualities of that Creator. They are the virtues of God, and soul is a tiny part of that Almighty God, just like a drop of water in a tiny part of ocean. Like a ray of light is a tiny part of the sun. We are all tiny parts of the Supreme Creator. Bhagavad Gita also mentions this. In fact, if you read Bhagavad Gita, it is a dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna, but you'll never find Sri Krishna Uvacha. It is always said Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Ete chamsa kalapumsa Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Indrari Bhakram Lokam Hrudayanti Yuge Yuge. So Bhagavad Gita also mentions Mame Bangsa Jibo Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha Manah Sasta Indriyani Prakriti Sthani Karsati. It states all living beings are in existence, are tiny parts of the God, and it is the nature of the each part to be naturally drawn to whatever. It's a part of that source. That is the nature. That is the gravitational force which Newton discovered when the apple fell on his head. He is the first one to think, why is the apple falling down? And he stumbled upon across this law of gravitation. The earth is pulling its tiny part. Similarly, we are all tiny parts of God, and He is pulling us to Him. That pull is experienced in this attraction towards His natural qualities. So, all of us, irrespective of cultures, irrespective of places, we are all naturally drawn to Him. We respect these divine qualities, and that gives us an absolute basis for ethics and morality. Similarly, these urge for knowledge also get explained. I mentioned we will all have that intrinsic urge to know, to seek knowledge, which is the very basic to our being. Why is this urge coming within all of us? It is again stemming from our Creator God. He is not only all powerful, He is all knowing. The word in Sanskrit called Sarvagya, omniscient. Sarvasya Sarvavidyasya Jnanamaya Tapaha. Shri Krishna is telling, Vedaham Samatitani Vartamanani cha Arjuna, Bhavishyani cha Bhutani Mam tu Vedana Kastana. He says, Arjuna, the Supreme Lord knows the entire past. He knows the present. He knows the future. He is all knowing. And we tiny souls are fragmental parts of that omniscient God. Hence, this urge within us to become all knowing like our creators. We may not be able to reach there at present, but that urge for knowledge exists. And similarly, this quest for happiness also exists for the same reason. The Lord is not only all powerful and all knowing or all virtuous, He is an ocean of infinite bliss. Infinite bliss. So we are all tiny parts of that ocean of divine bliss. That is why we have this natural desire to be happy. Nobody wants to be miserable. Everybody wants to be happy. And I can go on. But let me round up this argument with one last point on this contest. That is our desire to live. Nobody wishes to die. Let us say somebody is really old, he is admitted in hospital, his condition is very bad, his leg is hanging from a pipe has gone into his mouth, he cannot eat, there is a bed pain there, and that person says, Doctor, I hope I will not die. I hope you will save me. So this urge to live is natural to all of us. It is natural to all living beings. So why is this ours to live? Natural to the soul. The science of spirituality teaches us that the God is eternal. He is immortal, without beginning and without end. Never was the time when God did not exist, and never will be there a time when God will cease to exist. Na tabaham jato nasam naptam neme janadhipaha. Because we are all tiny parts of the immortal, eternal God, we do have this desire for immortality, and in fact, soul is eternal. But under this illusion, under this misconception that we are material body consisting of mere atoms and molecules, we are repeatedly experiencing the phenomenon of this death and birth, which is going against the nature of soul. And this repulsion for death and love for life. So these two assumptions of spirituality answers such vast amounts of knowledge. For the science of spirituality says that you do not have to keep on making assumptions. We also respect the scientific process. We also respect logical thinking. What is the reason? Why logical? That the respect for logic and its laws is universal, because this logic stems from the rationality of God. And that is why we all naturally understand something to be logical and something to be illogical. You follow the laws of spirituality, and you will start experiencing that purification from lust, anger, greed, envy, hatred. The nature of the soul will come to your experience. Ultimately, know and realize the absolute truth. Bhagavad Gita states, Bhaktya mam abhijanati javan jachasmi tattvataha tata mam tattvato gyatya vishate tadanantaram. He says, Arjuna, by exclusive, unalloyed, pure devotion, you will be able to see God standing before you, and you shall enter into his being. So when we believe in this, accept this field of spirituality, we don't force it. This scientific process we follow is the same hypothesis, experimentation, verification, proof, and theorem. In fact, Vedas say that there is absolutely no need to contradict or to have any acrimony between science and spirituality. They are both bona fide, genuine branches of human knowledge. The Mundaka Upanishad says, Dve vidya veditobhya iti hamsma yad brahma vida vadanti parachaiva aparacha parachaiva aparacha. Both these branches of knowledge are necessary. One is material, one is spiritual. You need to cultivate both these to reach your goals. Material knowledge is necessary to understand the external nature, to harness its forces, to meet the needs of our body, provide us with necessities to go in our life's journey, to give us body proteins, vitamins, carbohydrates, minerals, all these things. And for this, you will need material science, and spiritual science has its own place. Spiritual science is necessary for the purification of your inner self, mind, intellect, and for the manifestation of the inherent divinity within you. If a spiritual practitioner says material science is useless, you are the soul, not the body. Forget about all these material pursuits. Just be seated in yourself. Well, that is an incomplete viewpoint, in my opinion, because even to practice spirituality, we need to take care of our body. If the body is not functioning properly, we cannot even sit and hear and talk about spirituality. There is a very beautiful story about related to Lord Buddha. This is before his enlightenment. He was sitting in the city of Gaya in state of Bihar under a tree, and he gave up eating and drinking, sitting in meditation. And many days went by, and he experienced weakness, which is natural. He had stopped eating and drinking. So his head became dizzy and started spinning. So all his meditation finished. Some village women were passing by to fill water in their earthen pots, and they were singing a song. And the lines of the song were, tighten the strings of Tanpura. Tanpura is a musical instrument. Tighten the strings of Tanpura, but don't tighten them so much that the strings break. So these words fell into the ears of Lord Buddha, and he was amazed. He said, these illiterate village women are singing words of such amazing wisdom. Perform austerities, tighten the body, but not to the extent that the body is destroyed. It is said that Sarira Madhyam Khalu Dharma Sadharam. In Bhagavad Gita also, Lord Krishna says, Jukta Hara Viharasya Jukta Chastasya Karmasu Jukta Supna Bhavadasya Jukta Yoga Bhavati Jukta Dukha. So in your journey through life, this body is your vehicle, and just like you take time out to maintain your car, you need to take time out and make your maintenance of your body a priority in accordance with the age-old saying, health is wealth. So material science has its relevance in taking care of this gross body. However, if a materialist decries spirituality as a waste of time that has no logical basis or practical relevance, that is also an incomplete viewpoint. Without the recourse to spirituality, how will you develop those divine virtues and qualities that all of us have a natural urge to acquire? Material science does not have the answer to this. All the branches of material science start in all the great universities of the world and find out if there is any subject that is taught how to purify mind through material science. No answer. Again, I will quote from Einstein. Science has succeeded in denaturing the plutonium atom, but science cannot denature the evil in man's hearts. Science does not possess any technology to destroy evil propensities. So there is no need to contradict between science and spirituality. Spirituality is that body of knowledge that is giving us these tools and technology which helps us purify our mind and intellect to lead a pure, successful, noble, and divine life. So based on this perspective, both these branches of knowledge have relevance to all of us in our life and in our journey to the goal. We need material science to take care of the body and spiritual science to nourish the mind and intellect and ultimately soul. So this is how we can converge both these branches of human knowledge, which is science and spirituality. Thank you. Thank you for your patient hearing. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Kumar Mohanty ji, for such an in-depth exposition on science and spirituality. And just since you said about Einstein, so I remember one of his quotes also, that science, okay, that is about religion, that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. So
Yes.
that's a very thought-provoking like talk that you have given, that very often people think science and spirituality to be opposite to each other, but through the examples of many scientists, and also you explain how the science approaches the how of things and spirituality approaches the why of things, and the limits of science and the importance of science in our daily life. At the same time, the spirituality, the importance of spirituality in knowing the self. So, and also since you mentioned about the causeless cause, I think by Heisenberg, regarding the thing you said, the causeless first cause. That's actually, while listening to your talk, I was often reminded of a very important and significant book by the founder of the Philosophical Society, H.P. Blavatsky, which is also called the magnum opus, which is called The Secret Doctrine. And in that book, if I think you would be very interested in also having a look at that book, because it has also similarly, she has brought the philosophies of different religions and also the scientific background and different scientists' understanding and quote. So it is a very well expressed book on the comparative study of the religion, science, and philosophy. So I really extend my heartfelt gratitude to you. And now I request our delegates, if they have any questions or queries about today's presentation, or if they have any additional thing to say, you are most welcome. You can unmute yourself or raise your hand, and I'll invite you to say something. And you can switch on your video. Okay, Professor Shinde is here.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Pradeep Mohanty. Very nicely you have dealt with the science and spirituality. Especially we in Theosophy study the voice of the silence of H.P. Blavatsky, where she clearly says the self of matter and self of spirit cannot meet. That is the verse in the voice of the silence. It is a great statement. Self of matter and self of spirit cannot meet. And when you could say there is no absolute, and I think when we are trying to meet this self of matter with the self of spirit, one has to dissolve. And when we go to that absolute, there is no any cognition as such, that state. And perhaps because of that, it must be said that there is no absolute as such. One more thing I thought, when we think of science and spirituality, spirituality is more concerned about the spirit, self of spirit. And materiality is science. We are more concerned about the matter. And therefore, a human life is, because it is the human consciousness which is seeking the truth. Otherwise, the others are, superhumans are in the absolute only. Only human consciousness is seeking the truth. So spirit is, if I say, where I have read this one, spirit is unorganized life and matter is organized life. How do you look at this statement?
It's a very good question, sir. Very pertinent. He is the expected from a professor only.
Oh, thank you.
Sir, in fact, material science has its limitations. If I might have heard the name of Emmy Noether, a mathematician. Emmy Noether, he put it, she has given two theorems on mathematics. She said that mathematics cannot be applied to a unsymmetrical situation first, and the law of conservation has to be obeyed. Mathematics to be applied. Then came this mathematics of chaos, chaotic mathematics of chaos, and law. I think the most chaotic situation occurs in atmospheric science, for which the supercomputer is developed only for exclusively for initially for artificial science, and then it extended for other branches. So material science has its limitations. It cannot go beyond certain limit. If I just told that you can ask any scientist what the chemical composition of mind, can't get an answer. So material science has its own place, and spiritual science has its own place. Spiritual science is belief. In Bengali, there is a term called Vishwase Milai Krishna Tarke Bahudur. First have faith, then experience. But material science, we need some cause. I mean, some experimental verification necessary for material science. So material science has its place, spiritual science has its place, and we cannot deny both. There is convergence. We need both for our sustenance, for our growth towards that higher sphere, higher realm.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shindaji. Thank you, Mohanty. We have Ganesh Kumarji from New Zealand joining us. He wants to say something.
Perhaps we can also look at it. The material science is objective and the spiritual science is subjective. Anything which is objective, the science can measure it. But any of the subjective things, it cannot be measured. For example, we all know that we love, we have pain, but it cannot be measured. It is subjective. Whereas anything else in the material manifested world is objective, which the science is trying to do. Just a thought.
Yes, sir. You are very well correct.
Yes, that is a very also very interesting way of looking at it. The objective and the subjective science, very rightly and nicely expressed, Ganeshji. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And if anyone else has anything, any other question, otherwise, since okay, we are already beyond our time limit, but one just last question, just a query in Mohanty. How far do you think the importance of an open mind is for a scientist to reach the truth? Because many times what happens, the limit of the science is defined by the limit of the scientist or the person who is, working. And there is this understanding, I don't know, or approach that whatever we cannot measure does not exist. But I think the real scientific approach will be whatever we cannot measure or we cannot perceive may or may not exist. If anything you have to say about
yes, that's a good question. So my point is, see, the thing which once was regarded as absolute truth, now that has been superseded in science. Particular science is evolving. Science has not yet reached the absolute truth stage. Every decades or every year, you can say that science is bringing out new theories and new revelation of truth of this universe. So it is evolving now. It has not yet come to the final conclusive state. Whereas I can say that spiritual science is a matter of experience, and it is a question of, you can prove it by material science. Science, this mind cannot be proved by using material science. So it has its own place, and spiritual science has its own place. This much I can say. But science is evolving. Science has not come to the final stage. We cannot say that it is final stage. Every year, old laws are being superseded, and today, which so let's say quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics, they say that Professor Heisenberg said that principle of uncertainty, because it said that at any instant of time, the particles velocity and the particles coordinate, those can be measured with equal precision. It is not so. It must be, the multiple must be something greater than h cross by 2. I think science students can understand. So today it is not so, because our measuring estimates have not been developed to that extent. So I maybe after a couple of decades or years, on other side, scientists will come that it can be done. So science is evolving. It is not.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And just a final comment that we received in the chat, that anything that is measured depends on the sensitivity and accuracy of the instrument. That's right. And the better the instrument, the much more deeper will be the discovery. The science has to change its theory, of course, with mathematical proof of the hypothesis. Thank you, Ganesh, once again. And with this, we come to the close of today's session, and we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Brother Pradeep Mohanty ji, who took time out and shared with us his thoughts on the subject of fusion of science and spirituality. And I assume that most of our delegates would have found pearls of wisdom in that, and also food for thought. So, and I also thank all our delegates to join today in this session. And just to inform you that the next session will be on 29th of October and not on 22nd due to the Shara holiday. So next Sunday we won't meet. The next meeting will be on 29th. So let us all come together before closing, and we can say the prayer for the well-wishing of the whole manifestation. Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu, Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu, Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu, Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramayah, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kaschid Dukhabhag Bhave. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone, and have a great Sunday and week ahead. Thank you. Namaskar.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.